abroad advisor here. I apologize for I'm having some camera issues right now, so I can't show myself. But I just really echo what Marcus and Benjamin has said. Just the opportunities to be able to go abroad and the different things that you experience, and just really gives you a new perspective on the world and yourself. And yeah, I think it's just a great opportunity for our students to be able to have those kinds of experiences.
Thank you, gentlemen. Professors, if you all want to say anything real quick, give us a short introduction, tell us what area you're from. That'd be great to hear if you don't mind.
I'll go first. I'm Kelly Redmond. I'm in the College of Agriculture.
Thank you, Kelly.
I'm Crystal Bell, and I am the program coordinator for the Office of Undergraduate Studies, and also teach a general studies course.
Thank you.
Jasmine Hamilton, Associate Director, Associate Professor in Kinesiology. Well, School of Public and Allied Health, Kinesiology. Hey, everybody. I think I pretty much know everyone.
Hey, Jasmine.
Hello, my name is Stephen David. I'm an assistant professor of the School of Public and Allied Health. I'm welcome. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into it, y'all. Again, thanks for joining. I'm gonna share my screen now. Let's double check everybody can see this, correct? Yeah, awesome. So this is our study abroad website. The address is studyabroad.pvmu.edu. And we just redesigned this, so if you've seen it before, it may look a little different here, but I think we've got a nice clean website here for students and also you all to navigate through. And starting with you all for faculty resources, we've got a tab up here where you'll be able to find the proposal application. If you ever want us to come and do a presentation in one of your classrooms as well, come talk to your students about studying abroad, there's an option for that as well, to just kind of let us know what day and time you'd like us to come visit your class. But as it relates to the proposal, you'll just come to the website again and then click faculty resources in the menu. And then you want to click on this proposal link and it'll open up the application for you. I think so this here is just a little bit more information about the proposal itself. Essentially, we are aiming to have proposals in by June 30th. So a little over 6 weeks from now, almost 2 months. And that will be for programs that are going to be offered this upcoming school year in 2025. There are options to lead programs in the fall or in the winter, but it is a little more difficult, and the timeline is a little more it's sooner. There's not as much time, of course. So most programs, faculty-led programs that faculty offer, they're teaching the course in the spring, and then they travel with the students in May. So right after graduation for like a week or two. There are also options to lead programs in the summer. However, it's a bit more challenging because of financial aid and students needing to be enrolled full-time during the summer to pay for their courses, with the travel cost also on top of that. So I'll talk about that in a little more detail, but just want to again highlight that we're hoping to get these proposals in by the end of June. And so at the bottom, you'll find the application link to apply. And essentially, there's 3 different areas that we look for in the proposal. Again, we're talking about 2025. I think I already have a active application for this. But it'll give you the option to do 2025 or 2026. I'm gonna go ahead and click 25. And as it loads, I was mentioning there's 3 different components to the application. One is the course information, because again, a lot of the financial aid that we are able to offer is tied to these programs being for credit. And so essentially, faculty will take a class that they already teach either during the spring or summer semester or really any time during the year. And then they'll incorporate a travel component along with that program. Again, the most efficient way, given our current process, is to teach that class in the spring and then travel with the students in May. So most of our programs taking place this year are traveling next month from about mid-May for a week or two to the end of May. And so what you'll want to do is go in and list that course information, list that course or courses that you plan to offer for this program. Some faculty will partner with faculty from other areas, or like in this case, heard Stephen and Jasmine, y'all are both in the public health department. And so, for example, you may be teaching 2 different classes. And as far as recruitment goes, it's going to be much easier to recruit from both of those classes and get, say, the ideal number of students, which is about 10, as it would be to recruit from only one of your classes and come up with those same recruitment numbers. And so you don't have to do this, but it opens up the opportunity to more students. And so think about maybe which classes that you're teaching, as well as maybe other professors in your area, or even from a different college that may have some type of synergy. And you can list 1, 2, or 3 classes on this course information so that we know what courses are going to be associated with this travel opportunity. And so it can be cross-disciplinary. Let me stop there and just see if there's any questions about that. Awesome, I'll keep it going. So you see here, once you open up the course information section, you just list the instructor information, the college, department chair, contact info, and then also again list the name and the course number. It's nice for us to know if there's any prerequisites, and then when, again, that program is, what semester, what term that course or courses are going to be offered, and then just kind of a summary and uploading your syllabi. And so basically we take this information, all the course information, and when we build a program brochure to have the students, basically a page where the students can go to see the details about the courses that are going to be associated with the programs, we'll list all of that information, any prerequisites that they need to be aware of, the syllabi, so that they can, be aware of what the course will entail. And then just kind of a summary and description for what they can expect academic-wise. And so that pretty much takes care of the course information. Again, students will, some of them, depending on their major department, of course, they've got a little more flexibility than others. So some may have unrestricted electives, some may have restricted electives, and then some may really be tied into a particular degree plan and a set of courses where there's not a lot of flexibility. And so you also just want to kind of give consideration to when you're thinking about what courses you want to offer, think about what type of students in terms of like classification, for example, or department or departments you want to open up the program to, depending on, you know, your specific academic discipline. But beyond that, we'll move on to the destination information, which is the second part of the proposal. Essentially, we want to know the travel dates. What are your estimated travel dates? Again, most people do this in May, towards the latter half of May. And then we want to know what cities and country you plan on visiting, again, so that we can list this information. We do like to know the current travel advisory level for the country. And so we get those from the State Department. This here is linked to their website where you can search whatever country you're thinking about traveling to. And basically, like level 1 is exercise, normal travel considerations. And then 4 is basically like do not travel because of whatever's going on in that particular country. It could be weather related, health related, safety related. So it's always good for us to know because, of course, like when you do get these programs approved and then you have to submit your travel request through Concours, they'll be looking to see what is the risk level of the particular country that you're traveling to with your students. And so we just kind of want to plan for that up front and not do a bunch of legwork basically for a country that we may have trouble getting approved to travel to, although we can submit justifications to justify reason for traveling beyond what the travel advisory levels are shown as. So moving on, of course, we want to plan for, so we have to build a budget, right? But before we get there, we kind of need to know how many people we plan on traveling with. Again, the average program is about 10 students to 1 or 2 faculty. And that's really kind of like the sweet spot. You can travel with more students. Some of our programs have 15 students. We've also taken some larger programs of 20 plus, 20 to 30 students, and even 50 plus. Last year, we did a summer bridge program to Jamaica. But of course, the more students you have, the more faculty and staff participation you need as, you know, chaperones of sort to keep up with the group. So if this is your first time in particular, I would, you know, recommend keeping the numbers smaller and more manageable. But basically we're listing ideally how many travelers you want to participate in your program on this area, how many are students and how many are staff and faculty. And then lastly, updating or rather uploading an itinerary for your program. And we do have a template.
Marcus, real quick before you get into the template, I think you have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're on mute.
Okay. If say for instance, if we are developing a partnership with a particular institute in the said country, and we don't just want it open to students who think that this is as a vacation, but it's actually a learning opportunity. If we take less than 10 students, is that more money for those students who are going? Because I was reading as you were going along in the first segment that it had 1 to 2 weeks, but the partnership that I'm trying to create that the University of West Indies is interested in is a 3-month project for our students to work on figuring out tropical agricultural aspects in Trinidad and Guyana. So a week-long study abroad is not enough time for them to dive into and work with Trinidadian students and professors from the University of West Indies. So how would that money be allocated towards less students and less faculty, as well as with the financial aid for them to have this as a class that can replace a class in the curriculum here?
Yeah, sure. So, thanks for the question. And essentially, there's a lot of different variables and factors to consider in this regard. The one that immediately comes to mind is like thinking about which term is going to be offered, because if this was a summer versus like a semester, fall or spring, I think we'd have some different considerations there. However, we do have students who say, like, we have 2 students now who are doing a full semester. One is in Greece, I believe, and the other's in Japan. And so they're taking full course loads there right now. And essentially they had their courses pre-approved for transfer credit to come back to Prairie View. So when they finish the semester, they'll send a transcript back to Prairie View. And then the registrar and admissions office will basically update their degree works information to confirm what courses they're going to get credit for. And because of that, there's a process that we have where financial aid will be able to transfer to take care of whatever tuition fees and costs are going to be associated with those students for that semester, but it depends on their FAFSA information. So jumping back here on the itinerary template information, let me try to open one of these just to give you an idea, but it's essentially a day by day. And I think I have to stop sharing my screen and then reshare it with you all. Bear with me. So this is just a template that's available for use for when you're developing your program. Of course, again, we're talking about listing you come up with a name for your program, but the dates and also the location, the city and the country, and then just the day by day of arrival, the airport information, your hotel information that you're going to be staying at, and then what you plan to do, starting with breakfast in the morning on, say, that Monday for the first day of the program, that morning activity, the lunch plans in terms of like if the meals are going to be included or if there's going to be lunch on their own, whatever the afternoon activities are, and then details about, the dinner responsibilities, and just doing that day by day. And I find that the more detail we can kind of offer for the students, we're better able to establish expectations, the expectations that we have of them, and then the expectations that they have of the program as well. And I think, of course, we always have to be flexible, and so these itineraries are not written in stone. But again, we just kind of want to have as much detail and planned out information for the time that they're going to be experiencing, especially on these 1 to 2 week programs. Of course, a full semester would be a little different, but on these 1 to 2 week short-term programs, we want to have a detailed day-by-day itinerary. And so I'm going to hop back to the proposal. Can you all see the proposal information now? Yeah, thank you. And so again, we'll upload that itinerary that you can build. And so actually, before I move on to the budget information, I do want to mention that you don't have to do all of this by yourself. So for example, if you have interest in a place like Costa Rica, I think was the destination just listed on the template itinerary. We do have partners, or you may even have a partner, as Kelly has suggested. Partners in that particular country or area that can kind of help facilitate some of the planning and the logistics. And so, for example, if you want to work with a vendor who can kind of help come up with a detailed itinerary, and make arrangements like for transportation, hotels, and any activities, we can get basically a proposal from them that includes all of that information. We can also check with multiple vendors and kind of weigh those different options, and see, kind of who's able to provide the best experience at the best price. And then they'll actually provide us with an itinerary and a budget that we can use to upload to this proposal here. Many of the vendors though will need at minimum about 2 weeks to turn around a proposal. But the more time, the better, because there's just a lot of can be back and forth to just kind of confirm, your expectations as a professor and what you're looking for in the program that you're putting together and offering for your students. And then they'll also look to see what options are available in the particular destination that you all are looking for. Some of them will have sites or centers in those particular locations, where they may already have like housing, standard housing, or it may be that they'll have to go and shop around for different hotels or what have you. And so it just kind of depends on the destination itself. But just know that that is an option to work with a vendor. I'll also mention though, in that regard, working with a vendor, of course, does come along. I guess I'll put it this way: working with a vendor versus not working with a vendor, they both have their advantages and disadvantages. Working with a vendor, of course, they have to get set up in the A&M system as a vendor and then go through the whole contracting and procurement process. And so that itself, has its challenges. However, if you're working or kind of doing more of the legwork on your own, you can just submit your travel request that will have all the estimated expenses based off the budget that we've built, and you can book your own hotel, you can book your own transportation, and basically navigate the program using travel card or a cash advance to pay for the things that you need to pay for day to day throughout the program. The last thing that we want on the proposal is the budget. And we do again have a template for that as well. If you're building the program on your own, or you can also again get that information from a particular vendor that you plan to work with. And then that budget, most of the budgets include flights. Some of the vendors, if you work with a vendor, will be able to factor in the cost of flights, and then many of them, however, though, will only price the in-country components for the program, and we'll work with the Prairie View Travel Agency, CTP, to book group flights separately. But as we're building the budget, again, we're thinking about the cost of flights, also the cost of accommodations. Often they're shared. Sometimes you have to think about the gender breakdown as well, if there's even or odd numbers. Somebody may need a single room, and then, you know, that kind of raises the price on the accommodations. Think about transportation, and then what meals will and won't be included. A lot of our faculty will try to at least get one or two of the meals covered throughout the program, either like at the hotel if they're staying at a hotel, making sure that it's a hotel that includes breakfast, or a lot of times host will arrange for like a welcome dinner or a farewell dinner. And then again, just depending on the host and the location and whatnot, sometimes lunch or dinner could be included. Say if you're like working at a or working with a particular school, they may have you know, a cafeteria on campus where they can include the cost of lunches for the students, and then maybe the dinners will be on the students, a student expense, an out-of-pocket expense for once they actually get there. But just kind of want to think through that information and kind of factor all of that in at the end of the day. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, we want to think about what account do we already have an account that you have that you can use for travel and for students travel within your department, or do we need to work on creating an account that you can use? Regardless if you use a vendor or not, you're gonna have to submit a travel request for yourself and the students. And then on that travel request, you're gonna need to list the account number to charge the travel expenses to. And if you're working with a vendor, you're gonna need to submit a requisition with the account number to expense whatever vendor costs there are for that requisition, and ultimately PO and what have you. And so it can be, in terms of like timing, I'll say, once we start recruiting for the programs in the fall semester, students will have the options to start making deposit payments. And then sometime around the end of fall or the beginning of spring, we'll have more of a clear idea of how many students are committed to the program based off of how many have made deposits and how many have enrolled for your actual courses. And then from there, we can start working on the scholarship information and transferring scholarship money to that account as well. So between the students, the student deposit payments, any scholarships offered by our office through the Panthers Abroad Scholarship, and then any, say, additional department funding or grant funding that you potentially have access to or can secure to help lower the cost of the program. It can take some time to get all of that money transferred and available in the account. And so what I'm essentially suggesting and saying here is that we want to establish an account on the front end with a estimated expense budget for what it will cost to run this program, so that we don't have to wait till the spring semester to start submitting the requisition or to start submitting your travel request. Basically, we want to get this information in as soon as possible. But basically, one of the requirements to submit those requisitions and those travel requests is having an account with an estimated expense budget that they can charge to. And so basically, all I'm saying is we want to work on setting that up very early in the process, and it should make things move a lot more efficiently as we're trying to do things like pay the vendors and book any flights. And those are essentially the three components of the proposal application. This is, again, kind of first step. We need course information, destination information, and budget information. And then once we receive this, we'll definitely review it, or we can work with you along the way. And then ultimately, once it's ready for review, it will route to your department heads and your deans and ultimately the provost, so that they're in the know about the different travel programs we have coming up. And then we'll start building the program brochure page for the to start promoting to the students and marketing to the students. When the fall semester gets here, we generally have a study abroad fair every fall and spring semester. In the fall, it's typically in September, right at the start of the year. And so essentially that's why we're looking to collect this information now, so that when the fall semester gets here, we can kind of hit the ground running with the marketing and the recruitment for the programs. It really helps with the students have notice about these opportunities, so that they can kind of plan and budget for and speak with their families and basically just not have to miss out on the opportunity because they found out about it when it was, 2 weeks from now type of thing. So with that, I'll kind of pause and just, ask if anybody has any questions. Please feel free to unmute yourself and go for it. Marsha, I saw your hand first.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I joined about 5 minutes late, so I may have missed it. But since we plan for the future, for a future, I believe it is that we plan for a future class. Do we, if I am looking forward to having a study abroad opportunity for the coming semester, do I reach out to the students that will be in the class that I would have in the coming semester? Is that how that works? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. If you know like who those students are, say like particularly if like the class that you want to associate your travel component with has prereqs, and say typically students are in those prereqs now in the spring semester, but you're going to offer the other course in the fall that they would roll into. If you already know who those students are, it's definitely I think wise to communicate with them on the front end and kind of let them know, hey, this upcoming semester gonna be hosting XYZ course that's gonna include this travel component to travel to XYZ country, and just try to kind of get them excited about it.
Yes.
And maybe even collecting their information so that when the brochure or application opens for them in the fall semester or whenever, that you can send it directly to them, and also remind them about when registration for that course opens up, to also again reach out to them and make sure that they're registering for that course.
Okay, very good. And is there a requirement about how many hours, like in terms of the course number, if the course is 3 hours or 4 hours, does study abroad care how many hours the course is registered as? Okay.
No.
And one last question. It's pretty clear that the program accepts students that, of course, are enrolled or tied to a class with a course name and number. But I'd like to know if there is an opportunity for maybe a research lab that is within a particular department. Is a research lab allowed to apply for such a program?
Yeah, so it would just be for 1 credit hour. Is that the type of lab you're suggesting?
No, no, not, it does not have a course name or number. It's a research lab within a department.
Okay. So the main thing with the courses is it's essentially tied to funding. And so if you expect that the program that you want to offer is going to be dependent upon having some scholarship funding, then the program, we would recommend it have some type of credit component associated with it. Because otherwise we won't be able to offer any scholarship funding from the Panthers Abroad Scholarship, which is the international education fee funded scholarship that all the students pay some tuition into. However, if it's a research lab and you all have like some additional departmental funds or some grant funds that can be used to do some international research, and say you're able to subsidize the cost of that program and keep the cost very low for the students, and say only their out-of-pocket expense is something like $500, for example, then it's not as important or necessary that the program, the research lab, in this case, be tied to a course.
Oh, okay, so if it's not, so if it's a research lab, not tied to a course name or number, the lab would need to find the travel costs, the airfare costs, and lodging costs. Is that correct? Pretty much everything.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I see another hand. Timmy Lola.
So I also have a number of questions, so I apologize in advance. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Going back to, I'll start with where Marshall left off. So for the research labs, if it was independence, if some students were taking it as independent study for research credit, like a 1 credit or 3 credit independent study, would that work?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Okay, that makes that is helpful to know. So my situation might be very specific. So I'm not sure if this would require me just to meet with you and discuss things a little bit, because it's somewhat different from kind of what you've presented today. But you've probably had a few of my students reach out to you. There's about 4 of them who have been accepted into a study abroad program to Ecuador. And the dean's office, Arts of Science, has agreed to cover that cost, which they are extremely excited about. And I'm not going to be participating in that. So the program is one where they are there with trained clinical psychologists who are teaching them sort of culturally specific skills to work with Latinx populations. And so I wasn't sure what that would mean for me in terms of registering the program. And I know you talked about like setting up an account. I just wasn't sure if that all kind of comes through the dean's office and I just leave it at that and use their account number. Does it need to be filtered into the study abroad program for requisition and use? Like, I just wasn't sure how that would procedurally work.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, there's, I think, a lot to think about there as well. I would say we should
Oh, and there's
definitely.
also no course name or
Okay.
number tied to this.
Mhm. It will sometimes, if there's no specific course, it will also help if, say, the student is just registered for the full semester, or whether that's summer, spring, or fall.
Mhm.
And we're able to kind of make some exceptions, but they absolutely have to be registered one way or the other.
Okay.
Um, Beyond that, though, if you're thinking that this is going to be a recurring program for your students,
Mhm.
and um, I think, and especially also like if you want to be able to travel with them.
At some point, that would be wonderful. I don't have the fund. I wasn't allocated those funds, so I can't go this year, but maybe in the future.
Right. So Basically, again, like I think what you want to consider is going forward, what funding will be available. So I don't know if the dean's office is willing to commit to funding this for a couple students year after year. I know budgets change from year to year. And so it may be good to build a budget for the program, given what the costs are or expected to be.
Mhm.
And then still having an account, because one way or the other, say like if the dean's gonna cover the cost for these students,
Mhm.
it one thing you also have to consider is like who's gonna be purchasing the flights, and so who's gonna be paying the vendor. And so if that money's coming from the dean, how is the dean gonna pay for the flights or pay for the vendor? Or if the students are gonna have to, in this case, pay for their flights and pay the vendor directly, how is the dean gonna get the money to the students?
Well, so I think I have that part figured. These are graduate students, so they all have access to Concur, so they can just go ahead and purchase the flights themselves. And I recently received a pro card, so I can pay the vendor directly, but I wasn't sure if there's still a need to have it go through your office. It sounds like there's some paperwork that needs to go through to the provost, which is what I was hearing, and I wasn't sure sort of how you guys then are able to catalog this as a study abroad program. And if you are still needing to track it and track the students and track their expenses, and would I need to fill out those same forms just to make sure that I'm doing things in order?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, essentially there's like a lot of processes and logistics. Of course, Prairie View is part of this larger A&M system, and so there's a lot of different um, functions in place, like Concur and like our procurement office and what have you. And so um, essentially every program is unique in its own right. And um, I think with that, we look for different ways of, kind of making the travel more efficient.
Mhm.
And it's just a lot of different variables that we have to consider. But our office is essentially here to try to facilitate as much of that as possible,
Mhm.
or kind of give you a heads up on like any red flags or challenges that you might run into. And so essentially kind of the processes that we've built in place with the proposal is essentially like we can't help if we don't know
Mhm.
what's on the horizon, basically. And so we want to be able to kind of document who's going to be going where, when they're going to be going there, and then also on the back end, just facilitating the financial components of it, whether that be through Concours or distributing scholarships to the students, etc. And then beyond that, there's also, some risk management stuff that we have in place
Mhm.
for students to do some like health and safety training as well as sign waivers. We also have a application that communicates with well, rather that UPD has access to, so that they can see which students are abroad in which particular city and country at any given time. And so essentially, we just want to be able to kind of streamline everything that's related to the international travel for these students. And again, each department and college and program looks a little differently. But essentially, we want to be able to funnel everybody into through our office to kind of figure out which way to navigate and send them from there. I
Okay,
hope that
that's
was
helpful. Yeah,
yeah.
so it sounds like I want to still submit that proposal, even if it's sort of a accepted program, just so that you have that information and the procedures you have in place can be initiated. So I'll make sure to do that. Thank you.
Well, Stephen, go ahead.
Hi, Marcus. My question is, do you have a list of vendors or do we have to look for them ourselves?
We do, let me see if, I can go back here. I'm looking at our website real quick and I'll share my screen so we just updated it. I don't see it in the new menu, but we can definitely send you some information. Or rather also like if there's a particular country that you have in mind, we can maybe just make a recommendation for a particular vendor or work with you to find a vendor that can service you in that particular destination. We have one program traveling to Germany from the history department next month. And although like we have a list of 10 to 15 vendors, excuse me, that we regularly work with, none of them had any presence in the particular part of Germany that this professor was interested in. And so we had to do a little more research and reach out to some colleagues to kind of basically find someone who could support them while they're traveling throughout that region of Germany. So if there's somewhere that you've got in mind, feel free to reach out and kind of let us know. But we can also just kind of share with you some of our standard vendors that we regularly work with as well.
That's awesome. I'm looking at Southeast Asia, so that's a little off. I don't know if you've already sent students there, but yeah, thank you for the information. I'll be in touch with you. And if it's possible, if you could list the current vendors on the website, that would really be awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any questions by chance?
I guess I have one more. In terms of scholarships, so that is like a full scholarship. This isn't a loan. Typically, it's a scholarship for the program. And how much is it usually provided? I might have missed it. I had to step out for a second.
No, sure. Thanks for the question. So the scholarship is a true scholarship, and they generally range between $1,000 and $2,000. We're currently trying to rebuild the fund up, of course, during COVID, or rather because of COVID and the pause that we had in travel, the funds had kind of accumulated. But last year, we sent 182 students abroad. And so we gave out a lot of the scholarship money. And this year we've got another 100+ students that we're offering scholarships to. And so I can't guarantee, what the scholarship amounts are going to be going forward. However, we are working to try to get the fund replenished so that we can continue offering these true scholarships to the students.
That is amazing. I was not expecting those numbers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. King, could I talk a little bit about external scholarships and opportunities and how they might be relevant?
Please be my guest.
Yeah, so Mr. King was talking about our internal scholarship, which is really great, the Panthers Abroad Scholarship. But one thing I just want to kind of share with you all and just kind of encourage you all a direction in a certain direction is just in terms of some of our external scholarships, they have some really potentially robust funding. So in terms of things that would be more immediately relevant for your program, one thing I would mention is the Gilman Scholarship. And when that application opens up in the fall and spring, I can have our team kind of share that with you all. But essentially, the Gilman Scholarship is one of the biggest study abroad scholarships. They provided funds for over 100,000 students, and each of those students have to be a financial need, that is to say Pell Grant eligible. And the scholarships are in general up to $5,000, but I know we had several people mentioning STEM and STEM research. So they have a new component where if the student is doing STEM research, they can get up to an additional $1,000 on that, right? So that's up like $6,000 for the scholarship. We can put it in the chat and put a link in a moment. But essentially, that Gilman is like a really great pathway for funding, right? So that's one thing. And I guess another thing, and we can kind of share more information about this, is we're really happy and excited to see you all here. And your kind of study abroad, even though it's a great end in and of itself, it can also be a pathway to other opportunities. So for instance, our office, we provide advising on a variety of different external scholarships that can provide opportunities for your students after they graduate. So for instance, last year, we had our inaugural Fulbright U.S. student program recipient, Stephanie Tilley, who's in South Africa. And at the same time, we're advising on other opportunities. So let's say if you have a student who goes to Trinidad and Guyana and they're doing research, they might want to turn that into a Fulbright after they graduate, right? Or if a student is doing kind of some kind of other research in another kind of field, whether it's nursing or something, it could be an opportunity to go to Germany and do a master's in public health through DAAD, which is a German scholarship that provides full funding for students to do masters after they graduate, right? And there are a myriad of other kind of opportunities that our office advises on, but I would just emphasize in the immediate period, the Gilman Scholarship is something that students could apply for, and it has two deadlines. One is the first Thursday in October, and the other is the first Thursday in March. And the nice thing with the former is if you all know some of those students, especially to Mr. King's point about prerequisites, if you know those students in advance and encourage them to apply for that first cycle, they would know whether or not they received it well before that money was due for their thing. So they would already potentially have that money in hand. So when it comes time to making those payments, they already potentially have $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. And I guess the final point I would just say in this regard is Gilman Scholarship, as well as some of these other things, are funded by the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. And with that comes a really extensive, diverse network of alumni. So with that, if they receive some of these scholarships, they'll be able to tap in to these resources where there's funding for travel in some cases, funding for conferences, and they'll be able to network with people in their field potentially who can connect them to future jobs and other things like that. So just a few things to consider in terms of external funding.
Thanks for adding that, Ben. And I'll say too, it's been, I think, just about every semester we've had at least one student get a Gilman scholarship as well. So we already have students receiving these awards. Most of them get them for independent transfer credit programs, but they can be applied to your faculty-led programs as well. And so I think if we just had more students applying for these scholarships, we'd have more students get awarded for these scholarships. But we do already have some students who are getting these awards. And the last thing I'll mention just on budgets and finances for these programs, for the short-term programs in particular, the average cost is about $2,500 to $3,000 that per student. And so we find that, you know, if we're able to subsidize that cost again with our scholarship, and then they get some additional scholarship from elsewhere, whether that be the Gilman or say your college, some departmental funding or grant funding that you have. Most students seem to be able to come up with anything that's out of pocket for them, about $1,000 or less. Some of them also, some of the programs like to South Africa, where flights are a little more expensive, or like to Ghana or what have you. Those programs are closer to like $1,500 or $2,000 out of pocket. Those tend to be a little harder to recruit for, but there are a number of students who are able to come up with that funding out of pocket to participate in these programs as well. So just wanted to mention that for y'all to think about as you're kind of building your budgets and thinking about what what students are reasonably able to afford for these type of opportunities. We're pretty much at the hour. I want to thank you all again for joining us. We will follow up with some additional information. If you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're located in May Hall, room 120. It's the building with the flags behind Business, Ag, and Juvenile Justice. Or just give us a call or send us an email.
Mr. King, I think you had a question from somebody down below. Salim.
I do not see it, but be my
Well,
guest.
her hand was raised and then she put it down, so I guess she doesn't have a question anymore.
Oh, I was clapping. It was
Oh.
yeah, it was. I'm very like emoji conscious these days.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Jackson, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, will the recording be shared?
Yeah, we'll get it uploaded to YouTube and we'll share the link.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for all the information.
You're welcome. Well, y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.